Well, the reptile room looks a little bit different. Well, it's been about 13,000 subscribers since we did one of these, so I think it's about time we go through the reptile room and show you everything that's in here. We've got some new animals, we've got some babies, we've got some animals that have grown up quite a bit. And I think the idea, too, is the last reptile room tour, the criticism I got, which I appreciate, is that I didn't show the enclosures well enough. So I spent about 6 hours last night cleaning these enclosures, so let's go through and show you everything I've got, how they live, and kind of like the new setup, because I don't know if you see that? So you guys have seen this look before, me in front of these enclosures with a nasty glare, like holy cow. We've got quite a few more. So now we've got 4 of these that are 1.5 feet tall, and we've got, I don't know, what, 3 of these that are 1 foot tall. And we've also got this nice new thing here, which we're going to talk about at the end of the video. It's really cool. Now that I walk in and I've got this wall basically of enclosures. So let's just start at the top. Up top here, this is an empty enclosure, as you can see. Not really much to talk about here. This is where Marley is going to go. If you watch the big reptiles, or why reptiles aren't big pets, or whatever I did up in the corner here, this is Marley. This is the Dumeral's boa that we talked about a few weeks ago. She's going to go in there. She's still in quarantine. Now the one directly behind me here is a double enclosure, or so it's kind of split in two. So each side is 2 foot by 2 foot by 18 inches, or 16 inches I think they are. So it's the equivalent of about 40 gallons. So 40 gallons is big enough for what I've gotten here, which is Doomy, or Cubone, as you guys named her. This is the Dumeral's boa. I know we talk about her constantly. I love Dumeral's boas. Now I've got 2 of them, but Doomy, or Cubone here, she's a little bit smaller. She's still a juvenile, probably about a year old. So this is a perfect size for her. I would say that right now she's maybe 3 feet. So she's got 4 feet of wall space. That's generally the rule that a lot of people like to say is, you know, the back of the wall versus the side of the wall. If they can't stretch out the entire length, you're good to go. I kind of agree with that, and this is just temporary. She's going to get one of the big ones that, like the empty one up here, that Marley's going to get. So this is just temporary, and in beside it, right beside it, we've got something very exciting, because the only people that know about the reptile going in here later today is the Patreon supporters. I think next week we'll disclose what's going in here. It's a new reptile we haven't talked about. So guess down below, what do you think it is? What is it that's going to go in this enclosure that I have not talked about and only posted one picture of in April when I got it? Now, right below this is Franny, and you guys have seen Franny quite a bit. I actually did a whole video about how to set up boa enclosures and PVC enclosures back in January or December. So this one, I like the way that it turned out. It kind of turned out exactly the way I wanted it to. She, of course, ruined it. It usually has the branches that you can see here a little bit higher up so she can climb on them. Now she's going to get a bigger enclosure. We're going to make something that's going to be 6 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot, and because she's going to need it. Right now she's not big enough that she needs it. She's fine the way she is in this enclosure, but she is going to get a bigger one eventually, and I'm going to start screwing in platforms and branches for her to do her arboreal thing, because BCIs, which is what she is, by the way, she's a boa constrictor, or actually they're called BIs now, right? Boa Imperator? Imperator. Boa Imperator is what she is. So she might get 6, 7, maybe 8 feet. So we're going to give her a bigger enclosure, but that's going to be in the next reptile room, because this might be the last reptile room tour in this reptile room. I guess we'll see. You'll have to hit subscribe and follow along with the channel to see if maybe we can have a bigger one very soon. Nothing fancy. You're going to see a trend with most of the PVCs. Again, this is one of the ones that's 4 foot by 2 foot by 16 inches. It's not super elaborate, but at the end of the day, she's got everything she needs. It's heated with a heat panel. And I should say the Dumeral's boa and the mystery snake up above, it's actually heated with heat tape. So there's heat tape on the bottom of that enclosure heating them, because that's what they need. I think that it's better just to use the heat tape for those types of enclosures. With most of them, I've got heat panels. They're either 40 watt or 80 watt. Usually the taller ones get an 80 watt and the shorter ones get a 40 watt, but we'll get into that in a second. So now, down below, you can't even really see it. Down below here, this last one, which we'll show you a little bit of footage of, this is where Pikachu lives, and you can see these really cool shots of Pikachu actually being kind of arboreal, which is something that a lot of the times you're not going to see ball pythons do. Ball pythons will climb a little bit if you give them the opportunity, and it's because of you guys. When I first started the channel, if you see the first Reptile Room tour, it doesn't look anything like this. You guys have given me the opportunity to see the flaws of the way I was keeping reptiles, or not even flaws, but just the ways that I could improve upon keeping them. And one of the things that I do is give them a lot of enrichment. So with Pikachu's enclosure here, again, not super fancy, but it definitely has some enrichment options. It has places for him to hide, the, you know, drinking water, that whole thing, and the heat panel. This is an 80-watt heat panel. And this is what the boa enclosure should look like. These sticks that I've tied together, that's what Franny's look like too. I think she's just getting a little bit too big and they fall on her, but Pikachu uses these all the time, which is super cool for, I think I already talked about that. Okay, then we can move on. Oh yeah, it's an albino ball python, born in 2014. So that's Pikachu. Well, this is a view that you're pretty familiar with. I do videos sitting down here on the floor pretty often, and we got a little bit more going on down here now. Now you'll see that behind me, there's this one here that looks like it's empty. It's not. We'll get to that in a second. Up above me here, there's these 3, right? It's a triple enclosure, and it's got 3 snakes in it. And the newest one in the collection, this is Beatrice. We got her in February, I guess, right? February. Beatrice is a fantastic snake. She's doing really well. She's getting bigger, as you can see. And she's just got, you know, a very simplistic type of enclosure. Because again, this snake is going to need something as big as that mystery snake and the Dumeril's boa that you saw in the double enclosure. She'll need something that size or maybe even bigger, depending on how big she grows. It's a Pueblan milk snake. She's an apricot morph. Just, you know, regular aspen, places to hide, human hide as well, because she did have a little bit of a shedding problem, so we fixed that, just giving her an extra human hide. If you're doing stuff like this, it doesn't have to be super elaborate. Give them places to hide, like these, you know, fake foliage and things like that. It looks nice to you, and it's a place for them to hide, and they feel pretty secure. We'll get to these racks and these enclosures in a second, but to round out this 3-piece here, in the middle here, we've got the man of the hour, the one who made the entire breeding season possible for the Hognose snakes. This is Nicky. Nicky is a male. He's a Hognose snake, obviously Western Hognose. He's a het albino conda, so it doesn't show the trait for albinism, but has it, which made it possible to make albino babies with Ekans here. And he's got the same sort of enclosure, hide in the front, little log in the back, a bunch of foliage, looks nice, substrate is aspen, and then basically Ekans is the exact same. And Ekans is the full-grown female who mothered, like, is that a word? Mothered the whole clutch this year of the little babies. Big old female. She didn't double clutch for me this year like I thought she would, but I mean, how can you get mad at this? She's beautiful. This is, again, I pick favorites, and Ekans is one of my very favorites in my entire collection. The first PVC enclosure I ever got, and that's Irwin's enclosure. And the reason that it's dark in there is because Irwin ripped his lights down. Now you'll see here, this is how I light all the enclosures. If you want these lights, there's a description down below which lights they are. You can buy them on Amazon, and if you click the link, I get a couple cents, so I appreciate that. Basically, you wrap these guys all the way around the top, on the walls. So the front, sides, and then you drill a hole, and that's where the plug goes out, and these little prong plugs. And that plugs into an adapter that goes in the wall, and simple as that. And everything in this room is plugged into smart timers, which we've talked about before in my Reptile Room hacks, or things reptile keepers need to have, or whatever. There's a link right here, whatever that video is called. This is Jerry. We haven't got to the Leopard Geckos yet, but I just felt kind of silly sitting here talking to you without an animal on my shoulder. This is how we do things around here. Irwin is one of my favorites in my collection. I know I'm not supposed to pick favorites, but I do. And Irwin is one of my favorites. He's absolutely amazing. Blue-tongued skinks are the first reptile I ever fell in love with when I saw them on TV. He's an Indonesian blue-tongued skink, so his substrate, just like all the ones we've shown you so far, is a mixture of sphagnum moss and coconut coir. Now, sometimes I'll use something that's actually made for reptiles, but mostly I use Beyond Peat, which is a Canadian brand. Basically, any coconut coir that you find at a hardware store is going to be fine as long as it's organic and it doesn't have fertilizers in it. That's why I use Beyond Peat. It's just cheaper. So he's just got a water bowl and some foliage to hide behind, a little log, and just stuff to hide. Basically, the idea is all of these enclosures, you'll notice, I just make it so that they're happy and they have a place to hide and they feel comfortable, because an animal that doesn't feel scared is a happy animal, and if you give them places to hide, they can come out on their own. Okay, so you're gonna notice that Medusa doesn't look quite as big as she did before. Why? Because there's eggs. How about that? So we've got 10 good eggs. I posted a picture on the Patreon a couple weeks ago. Absolutely amazing. I have never got 10 eggs out of a ball python before, and I used to breed ball pythons quite a bit. I'm shocked. Normally like 6 is a pretty good clutch. 8 is like, wow. 10 is pretty amazing. But she's a big girl. I mean, when she was about 3,000 grams when she was full of eggs. She's pretty big. She usually, what's the term, slithers around at about 2,200 grams. And by the way, yes, I understand 3,000 grams is 3 kilograms or 3 kilos. I'm Canadian, I know the metric system. I don't know why we choose to use grams instead of rounding up. Anyway, she's a big snake, and her enclosure is very similar to all the rest. I don't give her as much height because she doesn't use it as much. Although I would love to swap out these 1 foot enclosures, like all these are 1 foot tall, the same parameters or diameters or dimensions is what I'm trying to say here, as the other ones. So 4 foot long, 2 foot deep, and 1 foot high rather than 16 inches high. I would love to give them a little bit more height with her. She never really used it. I had her in one of these 2 foot enclosures we're going to get to in a second here. And like the one above us too, which I keep teasing. We'll talk about in a second. And since we're just going around the room, this is one of the racks that I built right here behind me. And this is where we keep all the little tiny hognose snakes. And all the babies that we produce this year, I'm not going to go over in this video. It just would get kind of boring. I mean, going over 9 different hognose snakes, but I did a whole video about the hognose clutch that hatched right here. They are all spoken for. If you're on the waiting list, that means that you have them. So yeah, they're sold out, but next year we're gonna have a few more clutches. Hopefully we'll have a few more females that we can breed. We only had 1 clutch this year. And then we've got some baby, do you hear the dog barking? We've also got some baby leopard geckos, so we'll show you some of those as well. I'm very happy this year. I produced exactly the amount that I wanted. This whole rack is basically full. This and this are empty, by the way. We've got some new ball python enclosures, which we'll show you in a second. But we do have Miss Noodle down here, and Miss Noodle is just a normal, I can feel Jerry just on my back. It feels very weird. Miss Noodle is just a normal ball python. She's not full grown yet. I think that she's going to be ready to breed next year. And I've got some plans for a really cool male to breed her with. So we'll see how it goes. But for this year, she was just a pet of mine, and she's pretty cool. When I got her, she wasn't super tamed down, so we've actually had to work on it, which for ball pythons is actually kind of easy. But these enclosures like this, I actually don't recommend, and I've tried to get away from. She's the only one that I've got, the only animal that I'm going to permanently have in a rack system right now, as simplistic as this. So she's got a water bowl and a hide, and that's it. And I took the hide out for this video. It's soaking right now because she pooped all over it. She's got 1 hide and a water bowl, and that's it. She feels pretty safe because she is in this rack system, which gets... Sometimes when snakes poop, it literally sounds like farting, and that's what that was. Anyway, these enclosures here, once we get the next enclosure, we've got room for 1 more 1 foot one, which we're going to get for this side right here that we just finished with. And then all my ball pythons and all my snakes will be out of these silly rack systems. Although, not saying that they're bad. Just for me, I want a nice room. I make, these videos. The entire idea for me is to have them in nice displays. I can come in here and look and show people and show you guys. So this is going to be a temporary thing. We're getting another enclosure and she'll go in one of those. Next, baby hognose snakes. Very simple enclosures on these guys. Literally just that video that I pointed to earlier explains it better, but a water bowl, 2 hides, which are made out of paper towel holders, basically, and that's it. Oh, a little rock so they can get their shed off. That's literally it. But again, they're all going to new homes very soon. I am holding back a bunch of them. Next up, we've got, besides bad lighting, these are the just baby leopard geckos that will be going up on the site. No waiting list for these guys. This will be first come, first serve. It'll be on wickenswickedreptiles.com. Eventually, as they get old enough to ship. They're just all a little bit too small and too young to ship right now, but they're going to be up there. We won't go over them because they're not my pets. They're going to be your pets, maybe. And just the way that we keep them, very simple. We keep them with 2 hides, which are both made out of, well, paper towels, or not paper towels, but paper towel rolls, basically. I thought they were going to be right there. They're not. Paper towel rolls, water bowl, food dish. That's it. And the last 2 things we have on this rack on the top here, which actually have lids on them because I just don't... There's a little bit too much space in this rack for these little tiny little snakes. We've got Onyx, which is the only holdback from last year's clutch of hognose snakes. It's a male. He's got this really cool red patterning on them. So I think he's just normal, but I'm going to hold him back and try to breed him to something else and see if we can get that red to prove out to be something else. So I'm not sure. It's just a normal hognose, I think. About a year old now. We've got 3 spotted pythons. They all kind of look like this. They are in the same enclosure, so humid hide. They've got these paper towel holders. Why did I say that? Paper towel rolls as hides, basically, and a substrate made of paper, because this is a spotted python. They're going to get to be about 4 feet long, something like that, 3-4 feet long. So we're going to need to put them in a bigger enclosure. For now, this is just how they're going to grow up. This guy is eating fantastic. The other two are not growing quite as well, but Jimmy here, he likes his little pinky mice. So I'm super happy about this. You guys know I love spotted pythons. I guess let's talk about some leopard geckos. All right, we're gonna start at the bottom and go to the top this time. This is Eenie. Now, Eenie is the only holdback from 2019. She's a little bit skittish. I don't hold her as much as Littlefoot and Sarah, which you guys know, which actually won't be in this tour because we've moved them into the office now, just because I do so many videos with them. They're in the office. We might do a house tour. What do you think? For 30,000 subscribers, should we do a house tour? Throw it in the comments section. It's coming up pretty quick. This is, I guess, one of my most beautiful geckos that I've ever produced. She's a Max Snow, right? Max Snow. She looks absolutely gorgeous. She's got some really intense purples in her. And all of the leopard geckos kind of sit in enclosures like this. Very simple. They've got a substrate that's made of paper towel. It's just easier to clean up. I do breed leopard geckos, so it's easier to keep them in racks like this, although I do have the display enclosure, which is no longer in here. It's in the office, which we'll show in the house tour. And she's just got moist hide. Just, it's coconut core mixed with a little bit of sphagnum moss in there. That's it, which is the same what the babies have as well. And then she's got a water bowl and a food bowl. And she's got a foliage, a little piece of fake foliage just to help her hide a little bit. And that's basically it. They all look the exact same. This is what the enclosures all look like. This is Eenie, and she was produced last year, and she was fathered by Cheech and mothered by Millie, who we're going to get to next. Now, this is Millie, and probably produces more eggs than any of the other leopard geckos that I have. She's beautiful. She's got this robust body right now. She's just finished producing eggs. She's done for the year. But because of that, she's got kind of a skinnier tail. Normally when you see other leopard geckos that I have, I feed leopard geckos very well, they've got these big, robust tails. Like Cheech, who's the father of most of the animals, most of the leopard geckos that we've had and ever produced. So we'll show his in a second, but just that's why. If you're going to say, oh, her tail's a little bit skinny, she just finished the breeding season. She put out 16 eggs this year. So her best year ever. Last year she put out 12. She's kind of doing the splits right there. And she lives in the same type of enclosure that Eenie does, who's her kid. Hard being a mama, isn't it? This animal here, this is Cheech. This is probably the most special animal to me because I've had him for so long. Cheech, you can see, big old tail like I showed you before. Cheech is an old man. He was born in 2010. He's 10 years old. I've had him since 2011. Actually, my dog, who is now a senior dog, I got Cheech the week before, a week to the day before. April 12th, 2011, something like that. This is the longest reptile I've ever had, besides the bearded dragons that I had for a little bit longer, but just died because they were old. So this guy, he's an old guy, and he lives in the same sort of enclosure. I want to get another one of these 3 pieces here when I've got the room, and have them as leopard gecko enclosures. Kind of make them really nice, maybe even a bioactive substrate, something like that, and have our man Cheech in one of them, because leopard geckos can live quite a few years, so he's definitely not even half cooked yet, but I want to give him like a palace. He's bred till his heart was content. He'll still breed for a couple more years until he can prove that he either can't do it, or the eggs aren't fertile anymore. This is the guy. This is my favorite reptile in my entire collection. He's fathered over 100 babies now. He's Littlefoot's dad, he's Sarah's dad, he's all the dads of the leopard geckos up here. He's Enie's dad. This is the guy. This is Cheech. And to round it out, we've got a few more leopard geckos. Josie, who, her tail's in pretty rough shape. She's done for the year also. She's produced a bunch of eggs. And then Jerry, my main man, who was on my shoulder earlier. And that rounds out the leopard gecko collection for the room. We do have 2 more, but again, house tour that I keep teasing. Hit subscribe. We'll do it. I almost forgot about Diglett. This rack is basically just storage now, so sorry, after the fact as I'm editing. This is Diglett's enclosure, kept very much the same as the leopard geckos. Bob, oh yeah, that's right, we have to go outside. Bob, who's outside right now, gave up his enclosure, and now we've got Peter. Peter's up here in this enclosure. It's a 3 foot by 18 inch Enclosure. So a little bit on the small side for a ball python in my opinion, but he's also the smallest male that I've ever had that's full size. So I think that he's probably not going to get that much bigger. If he does, he'll get another enclosure just like the ones that we've shown you for the other ball pythons. And right beside him, by the way, before we move down, we've got the tree frogs. This is Humpty and Dumpty. They're just green tree frogs. And I do have some plans for them. I want to make, well, house tour coming soon. We're gonna make something really cool for these guys and maybe a couple other frogs as well. Now, moving down, we've got the Sudan plated lizard. This is Attila. I love Attila. She's not super handleable. She pees all over you, tail whips you, tries to bite you, but she's beautiful to look at. I think this is kind of very dinosaur-esque. This is like a shrunken down version of what we thought dinosaurs looked like in the 90s, right? Now we think they've got feathers, but you know, this is what Land Before Time taught us dinosaurs should look like. And she's in a 4 foot by 18 inch by 18 inch enclosure. So she's got quite a bit of room, more than she needs. She is going to go outside to be with Bob, not in the same enclosure, but in the same yard. Her enclosure is very simple. She's got a substrate that is made of coconut bark, coconut core, and sphagnum moss. It stays dry, really dry on one side and humid on the other. Sudan plated lizards, they like to be dry during the day and have kind of these burrow areas to go out to, and that's the reason she's not outside. I'm making the burrowing substrate availability for her in her outside enclosure. Very simple, light bulb to light it, UVB light, of course, she needs UVB, she is a diurnal lizard, and she's got some hiding places, some foliage, water bowl, you get the idea. Now below, and she just went into this enclosure today, so she's probably pretty happy about it. This is Persephone. Persephone came with Peter. I got them at the same time. Peter is a orange dream spider, by the way. No, I'm not breeding him. He's a spider. Persephone, she is just a fire, which is beautiful. I think fireball pythons are fantastic. The first clutch of ball pythons I ever made were fire ball pythons. And of course, fire times fire, you get supers, which are all white snakes with black eyes. Anyway, this is Persephone. She's got this really cool log that we paid way too much money for as a hide on the one side, and then on the cool side, she's got or hot side, warm side, she's got another hide, which is just from the dollar store, these little dishes that you've seen in all these enclosures. Her water bowl and the substrate is just coconut core and sphagnum moss mixed together. That's it. Stays nice and humid, exactly where she needs it, 50-60%, sometimes up to 70. It depends how often I miss, which is usually once or twice a day. And she's actually been pretty active. We've given her UVB. I've never really given my ball pythons UVB, but someone suggested it, said that their ball pythons are out basking and they act very different. So we're going to give it a try. All right, let's talk about it. This thing behind me that has my logo and my name of the channel engraved in it, or machined into it. What the heck is that? Where'd you get it? Cages. I want to say thank you to my friends at Cages. Zach, thank you so much for sending me this cage. So I guess I should say this. This isn't a sponsored message, but I did get this cage for free to test out to see if maybe we can move some of these cages. Because the question I get more than anything in the comment section is, hey man, where do you get all your PVC cages? And I wanted to try something a little bit different, a little higher quality. And this is actually made from PVC sheet rather than the molded PVCs that you've seen me talk about for the rest of the video. And we're going to do a whole video featuring this cage right here, a time-lapse of me building it, my thoughts on it. But for now, there is a affiliate link in the description below. Use that link, you're gonna get whatever the discount we decide is, and I get a couple of points. So you're doing me a favor, you're getting yourself a wicked enclosure, because I will say, although this isn't the full review which I plan to do, I honestly can't say enough good things. It went together great, the quality is amazing, the build structure is just so much better than any other PVC cage I've ever used. It's got a deeper bottom, where with my gripe with these ones here that you've seen throughout the video is that it's just got this thin little lip. This thing here, you can use a full, I don't know how, I think it's like 6 inches worth of substrate. So absolutely amazing. The glass slides perfectly. All right, we're gonna do a review the next time. If you want one of these, you won't regret it. These things are top of the line. Last but not least, we've got Bob's enclosure here behind me in the sun with birds and airplanes above. This is Bob's enclosure, just kind of very simple. Bob's outside, you're not gonna see him because he's hiding. I think that kind of ends the whole tour here. So there you go, Reptile Room tour, summer 2020. Maybe the last one in this Reptile Room. What'd you think? You like this style of video? Should I do more like this? Do you want to see the house tour? Whatever questions I asked throughout this entire video. And as always, thank you so much to the Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. You got to see this video early, just like all the other ones. Extra content, you know about that secret snake that no one else knows about, which guess in the comments also. I think I've plugged everything. Subscribe. See you on Thursday.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up.